Trump weighs 100 executive orders, many on border security for first day in office.
Good
100.
stuff.
What's the record?
The record on first day in office? I don't know, but this would probably be
it,
more
right?
than Biden's. Yeah, Biden
I'm
had
pretty sure. I feel like Biden had around 60-something.
on his first day in office.
his
Well, it
first
was
day.
the gender one. He had like that.
But it was
that
also
the one that really
reversing all
launched
of
it.
Donald Trump's immigration policy.
He had very many.
He stopped building the wall immediately.
I mean, every president since George W. Bush has had more executive orders than the previous one.
Correct.
Yep.
Which I find really disturbing. I mean, a lot of this stuff should be law or it shouldn't be happening. It's very bizarre that a president can come into office, make a whole slew of regulations without congressional oversight, without the people's oversight,
Well,
and then they can just be automatically
not.
reversed.
There's limitations to the authority of the executive branch. Executive orders tend to be things like, I am instructing my law enforcement agencies to no longer go after people who are doing this thing.
Right.
I am now instructing.
His was building a wall. I mean, his wall building was an executive order.
I think that still falls within the purview of the commander in chief.
Grok
Defensive
says
structures with military budgets.
Grok says that the largest number of executive orders signed on the first day by a president was Joe Biden, who signed 17 executive orders on his first day.
17?
That's what Grok says.
Let's
I thought
go,
it was
Trump.
I thought it was bit
Well, there
higher.
were a
Again.
bunch in that first week. I mean, he
Okay.
just kept rolling them out day after
Yeah,
day.
it could be
I hope
could
one
be
of
that he
the-
got. I mean, he's an old guy. Could have been that
Yeah,
he got
he
tired
might have-
after
he
16, and the
might
next
not
day
have
he
been
did
able to
another
do that.
pile. you know.
We all know he wasn't doing it.
No,
But
he wasn't doing
I
it.
hope one of his executive orders is the creation of a special investigation to the J6 committee.
I
He
think
doesn't
that would
need
be
an executive
worthwhile.
order for that.
Yeah.
I'm just, poking the bear a little bit.
well, if you were coaching witnesses, if you are destroying evidence, that's a crime.
Yeah.
And should be investigated. Again, that goes back to my thing being a member of Congress. What are we actually doing here? And we know that we know so much more today than we knew 4 years ago even. But to hear that, it's very disturbing. And if they get away with it, it's wrong. It's illegal and should be investigated.
It does seem like there was definitely some collusion between Liz Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson. It seemed kind of disturbing, that they were like a back channeling before she testified.
And not wanting to come forth with their information, their evidence, and their documentation, trying to keep that at bay. That's also wrong.
Well, and not hanging on to all of the documentation that they had during that committee.
Yep.
I mean, that's for real. Benny Johnson
what they
talked
do.
about that.
That's what they do. Everything they
Yeah.
accuse Trump of doing or the right of doing, they themselves are the ones actually doing. They're projecting every single thing.
Would
that
you
they
go
say.
so
It's
far as
it's
a
it's a
special
clever
counsel?
deflection.
Yeah, I mean, special counsel would be fine, but we actually have to do something. Like,
I agree.
indictments have to be referred. Like, if you broke the law, you should be investigated. You should go to jail. You should be tried for it. I'm tired of the days of we are better than everybody else. That if you are a highfalutin official in D.C., that you are above the law or a
Why
member
were
of
there
their
never
family.
any consequences for Merrick Garland
Right?
being in contempt of Congress and refusing to comply with a subpoena on the her testimony?
Well, because it's a Democrat-controlled Senate. That's why. So what do we do now? Right?
He was in contempt of House. I mean, he was in contempt.
Correct.
And
that
nothing
gets
happened.
Right. Nothing happened because of the DOJ being
The DOJ was like,
Biden.
"Oh, we're not going to prosecute our boss." It's like,
Correct.
okay, maybe someone else should prosecute your boss,
right.
If you're too pussy to do it.
It feels like there are very few checks and balances in the government, even though that is the purpose of the three separate branches.
I was just watching, I saw a picture of Steve Bannon earlier, thinking about that guy and how he basically went to jail for that contempt because he wouldn't sell out wouldn't speak against the president on the stand. And it's like Merrick Garland. I don't know if it's the exact same.
Garland should go to prison.
I felt so bad for what Steve had to endure for 40 days or more. It was just so gruesome to put a human
It'll
through
make
that.
a great book one day.
Yeah.
It'll be fascinating reading.
And I guess, should he have gone to prison?
No.
Then should Merrick Garland go to prison?
Yes.
What's the difference?
He did go to prison.
No,
Should
I mean,
Steve?
why? What's the
Yeah,
difference?
Should Steve Bannon have gone to prison? No.
Well, what's the
Should
difference in
Merrick
what the-
Garland go to prison? Yes. And the reason why is that
Because
Steve Bannon went to prison.
and Peter Navarro
They
both went to
treated them
prison.
differently.
So it was a total misapplication of the law in the first case, and then it was applied especially for Merrick Garland, who didn't have to suffer from any of the consequences of refusing to comply with a congressional subpoena to turn over documentation about the president's, mental capacity due to his aging. We still haven't seen the full transcript of the, Robert Hur testimony because they redacted parts of it. And it turns out that the biographer of Biden, who was part of that part of that case has a lot of documentation as well, and we don't get to see that.
Well, I would say I want to protect the power of the subpoena. Like, if Congress has that power and authority, we have to protect it. My issue is the way that it's applied. You know, one or two people, in this case, the Republicans go to jail, Democrats don't. Whatever the standard is, it has to be applied to everybody equally. And if you get a congressional subpoena, unless you're protected by the executive powers, you have to show up. You have to testify. And that was the issue with Hunter Biden when he showed up to the Oversight Committee. That guy was subpoenaed. Nothing happened. He showed up with a TV crew, Netflix crew, whoever it was, whatever streaming service it was. I screamed at him and said he had no balls because he showed up there and defied a congressional subpoena. And then he didn't go to jail.
Well, and also he specifically held his press conference on the Senate side.
The same day.
The same day,
Right
so that he
before.
couldn't be taken into custody by the House Sergeant of Arms.
Yeah.
I just want to make a correction. I was wrong about the number of executive orders. They haven't been increasing. In fact, George W. Bush had more than Obama. Trump had less than Obama, and Biden has so far had 143. But I will say that Franklin Delano Roosevelt had 3,721 executive orders.
Really?
Well,
I did
yeah,
not
FDR
have that data point.
Yeah, FDR was garbage. But anyways.
Yeah, Woodrow Wilson had, it looks like, the second most with 1,800. But
That's the worst
in the
president in
21st
American history.
In the 21st century, it's all been under 300. But Bill Clinton had 364.
Interesting. I didn't. So we're actually on the low side. If you
So,
We're on the low
wondering.
side, yeah.
Joe Biden,
The
17.
mainstream media.
I don't
lies
mean on
again.
day one. I
No.
mean total.
Yeah,
Right. So for day one, Joe Biden did 17, which was, I believe it was a record. Trump had 1. Obama did not sign any executive orders on day one of his first term. On his second day, he did sign some. George W. Bush didn't have any executive orders, and Bill Clinton had an executive order 1.
You're talking about on day
Day
one.
one. Day one. If Trump comes in with 100 executive orders, his wrist is going to be tired.
Baller.
You know what? I want to see it. Like, get it done, Trump. You have a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
It's time to just do the stuff. He had a lot of campaign promises, and the American people, we all out here, we expect him to deliver.
Particularly-
And some of them are going to be ugly, but it's time to get it done.
Particularly if they're regarding the border and immigration and stuff like that, because
You gotta start.
you got
Get
like
started.
70% of the population feels like deportations are what they want. Not just like, are they kind of okay, are they a little squishy on it?
Bye-bye.
They're
That's what the
straight up
American
saying
people saying.
70% of the American people say we're okay with and we desire deportations. Now, whether or not you think they should deport people that are just here illegally and that's the only law they've broken, I don't care. I want to see them to start with the criminals like they've said and then go on down the list. If you're here illegally, you should not be allowed to stay. The only caveat I would have is the people that are dreamers. They can stay if there's some kind of benefit, but if they're just going to school and on the government dole and stuff
We
like
have
that,
visas for
they
going
can
to
go
school.
too.
We have visas for coming here to work. You
So,
get in line with everybody else.
I don't have any problem with deporting people, and I think the American the American people have made it completely clear they want that just as much as they want ID to vote, which is another thing that even though the
Gavin
states,
Newsom got rid of the voter ID in California, a week ago, 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago, something like that.
Well,
Crazy.
he made it illegal to require it.
yeah, and as I understand that the states run their elections, but I don't think that there's a
Yes.
problem with the federal government saying that you must do your elections in one day and there's a deadline at night. I don't think there's any kind of constitutional
Federally,
preventing.
we can only weigh in, I believe, on federal elections, but states run their election policy. That is, checks and balances within the government, states' rights, et cetera, federalism, that the balance that we have there to have some of those checks and balances. But my bill, H.R. 30, the Violence Against Women, Preventing Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act, will get a vote next week. Elon Musk has endorsed that bill. My plan is, and my idea would be, deport the worst of the worst. And deportation is not a 4-letter word anymore. They have to go. The American people want them out. Get back in line to come here and work or come and go to school. Get in line with everybody else and, fix the visa system that we have. But, a lot of these companies, they're incentivized, and this is getting into the details, but they're incentivized to hire foreign workers.
Yep.
We have to stop incentivizing that and incentivize them to hire American workers, like the Social Security, FICA, what they're using there. They're incentivized to hire people that are not American.
Yeah. Are you aware of, this is a bit off topic, but are you aware of Health and Human Services refugee resettlement program?
I'm aware of FEMA's program to house illegal aliens, but that's resettlement program, yes.
So if I was reading on HHS website, they have a program called the Refugee Resettlement Program, and that's what they've been using to take people that come to the border and say that they're claiming asylum. They're saying all they do is they have to say, I'm claiming asylum, and then they'll go ahead and put them into that program as opposed to being like, oh, you have to leave or whatever. And they start, and that was part of how they filter them out through the country. And so I've made a bunch of noise about this on the show in the past. I think that was one of the means that they've been using to try and turn purple states bluer and so on.
100%. And swing states, swing districts, 100%. But also, and the White House denied this last year, but there was a program voted on by Democrats and a handful of Republicans twice in the last 2 or 3 years that fed FEMA $1.45 billion to house illegal immigrants in this country. FEMA's mission is to protect against natural disasters and to respond to natural disasters. It is not to house illegals. Turned out that was true. I had a bill for that. Couldn't get a vote, by the way, in the House last year on that bill. But we were funding through FEMA housing illegal aliens.
It's called the HHS Office of Refugee Resettlement.
Yep.
That's why Remain in Mexico is so important, and Trump promised to bring that back.
Yeah. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.